there's three distinct ways that crystals work. The first way is quartz crystal has a physical property called diamagnetism. Now, what diamagnetism means is, imagine if it's pouring down with rain and the rain's coming down like straight. If I want to protect myself, I put an umbrella up. And what the umbrella will do is it'll deflect the path of the rain so that the rain then bends around me. Now, if some unfortunate soul was standing beside me, they'd get twice as much rain because the rain's going to bounce it off my umbrella and dump it on them. So a diamagnetic substance does something very similar, but it's not the rain it's bending, it's the Earth's magnetic field. So what that means is the Earth's magnetic field is bent around it, and anything to the side is going to get a little bit more of it. So like a crystal, for example, the Earth's magnetic field's coming down and it bends around it. And so anything here gets a wee bit more of the Earth's magnetic field. So in one part of, there's three parts to the crystal chapter. In one part, I explored research that shows that increasing or decreasing the intensity of the Earth's magnetic field accelerates or decelerates the growth rate of plants and even the amount of chlorophyll and iron uptake in plants. And there's research in that. It's called plant magnetoreception. And there's a lot of interest in the science of it, because scientists now, because we're more serious about space exploration than ever before, it's what are the consequences of transporting seeds, for example, or plants in a spacecraft that isn't subject to the Earth's magnetic field? Will they still grow in the absence of the Earth's magnetic field? Even if we can find some nice soil on Mars, what will be the consequence when Mars's magnetic field is significantly different from the Earth's? So there's a lot of research on just tweaking, increasing, decreasing Earth's magnetic field, and it makes a huge difference to the growth rate, even biomass accumulation in a plant, huge growth. So my first approach in the chapter was to demonstrate that a diamagnetic substance, by fiddling around with the Earth's magnetic field intensity, can have an effect. There's no research into it. I did a few experiments myself, but there's no formal research into it. But I just pointed out that it can have, and then we can't just dismiss the sitting on crystal chairs. We can't just dismiss it, because in fact, pseudoscience is dismissing something based on a belief without investigating the evidence yourself, not the stuff being dismissed as pseudoscience. But pseudoscience itself is dismissing something based on a belief without taking the time to investigate it yourself. And so I thought, I'm taking the time here, and I think there is something in the physical property of crystals that fiddles around with the Earth's magnetic field. Perhaps lots of crystals together at one point, different types, might generate quite an interesting tweak to the intensity of the Earth's magnetic field so that we can actually feel it, differently. Because there's research at Caltech in America where they actually put people in an electromagnetic shielded room. They replicated the Earth's magnetic field, and then they rotated it. And they just rotated it, the Earth's magnetic field. So the lines, instead of going that way, they were going up the way. But you can't see it. So they rotated the field inside this electromagnetically shielded cage. Do you know, every single person's brainwaves abruptly changed. They couldn't feel anything, but their brainwaves abruptly changed. In other words, the brain was absolutely in sync with the local Earth's magnetic field, not just the intensity of it, but whether it was pointed in that direction or that direction. So there's a fascinating research that shows we are absolutely sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field, because biology has evolved within the natural tone, if you will, of the Earth's magnetic field. The clarity of a crystal, in a Buddhist tradition called Dzogchen, the clarity of a crystal is used as what's called the mental representation, where the clarity represents mentally the state of clarity that one wishes to attain through the meditation and the spiritual practice. Now, in cognitive psychology, if you have a mental representation of some way, then it helps you move towards something. So that's another link I made with crystals. Because of what they mean to us, because of what that represents, the clarity, even it comes from the Earth itself, it's a mental representation. And so because I have a representation to focus my attention on, it makes it easier to get clearer in state. Like if you hold or see a crystal, because its clarity points you towards that state I would like to attain. And then the last section in crystals was color psychology. like in terms of using crystals in jewelry and stuff like that, and even just having them visible. The science of color psychology shows, and marketers use it all over the world, to sell products. For example, a shop window with red in it encourages impulse buying. If you put blue lighting, it creates a calming effect and stuff. So I cited a lot of research in color psychology and saying that crystals of a certain color, because of what the color represents, can actually cause behavioral change in people and even neurological change. In fact, one study I cited, volunteers were given a cherry flavored drink, but the scientists put a green dye in it. So even though it was cherry flavored, it was colored bright green. 37% of people couldn't taste cherry, and they swore that the flavor was lemon or lime. In other words, the brain processed the taste based on the color more than what it actually was itself. In other words, the color itself was changing the activity of the brain in flavor processing regions. And so I pointed out that crystals may have an effect on that basis as well, because of their color and what the color represents to us in the psyche.